Welcome to Evolve to Succeed, the podcast that brings together entrepreneurs, founders, business leaders and experts to talk about their journeys and explore the link between personal and business success. I'm your host, Warren Munson, founder of Evolve, a coaching, training and development company focused on enabling business and personal success and creating a community of like-minded individuals. Whether that be through our peer groups, one-to-one coaching, our training and development programs for you and your teams, or through our content and events, our mission is to get the best out of each individual and inspire them to be better both in life and in business. If you want to learn more about Evolve, including our beautiful co-working space in Ashley Cross in Poole, then please go to evolvemembers.com, where you'll find great content, insights, details of all of our services, and also information on our forthcoming events. For now though, let's get on with the show. My guest this week is Adam King, CEO of SwipeStation, an ordering and payment app aimed at reducing queuing time at stadiums, as well as helping increase their sales. As you'll hear, SwipeStation is just one aspect of Adam's entrepreneurial journey. He's had an interesting, adventure-filled life that has, among other ventures, seen him set up a bespoke tailoring business in Vietnam, and he also holds the official and somewhat dubious record for watching television in public for 48 hours straight. It's a great conversation in which Adam speaks with enthusiasm, humour and honesty about his business life, as well as his growth as an individual and the pleasures of being a new father. I particularly enjoyed talking to Adam simply because he is so open, and he's clearly someone who spends time reflecting on his life to understand what he's done right, as well as the mistakes he's made, and how to learn from both of those things. Enjoy the show. Welcome, Adam, to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. Lovely to be here.
It's great to have you on the podcast, and I'm really intrigued to talk to you about your latest venture, SwipeStation, but I'm also intrigued to learn a bit more about your backstory. And as we'll learn, SwipeStation is a technology business, but your first business that you co-founded was in 2004 and was a bespoke tailors. So how does somebody leaving university, obviously by the look of your backstory in the career, you'd had a few jobs and that, but why set up a bespoke tailors in 2004? What made you do that, Adam?
So I got made redundant in 2003, and my boss said, let me give you a piece of advice. Start your own business. You're an absolute nightmare of an employee. You always
You're unemployable.
You're unemployable. Start your own business. So, I got the redundancy, and then a few weeks later, I got a call from a friend who works in telly, saying, there's this show coming up that I'm working on, and I really think that you'd be good for it. And I ended up auditioning to be on this show, and it was the launch of like a adrenaline sports channel.
Okay.
And you know those endurance tests that they have where you have to hold on to a Land Rover and the last one wins a Land Rover or whatever. This is the lamest version of that. So They built 3 glass boxes in Covent Garden, and I sat in Covent Garden in this glass cube and broke the Guinness World Record for continuously watching TV live on TV. It was the dullest TV you could possibly imagine. I mean, just watching someone watch telly. But and the Guinness people were there wandering around and checking that we weren't looking away from the screen. And I had to stare at that screen non-stop for 48 hours.
And that broke the world record.
That broke the world record, and I won 10 grand. So along with my redundancy, I decided I would travel the world on my own, and for a year. And my first stop was Vancouver. I met up with my friend Jake Allen in Whistler. And he was about to go traveling for a year as well. And over a few beers, we decided that we would be business partners. We were going to search the world looking for a product or service that didn't exist anywhere.
So even before you went traveling, you'd met up and you decided the purpose of this traveling trip is we're going to find a business. We're going to come back home.
He was going with his girlfriend. But don't get me wrong, both of us were on a jolly. He was
Okay.
going with his girlfriend, who became his wife, and they were just going traveling for a year, and I was going traveling for a year purely on a jolly. But then, as a result of this pact, we met up 6 months later, halfway around the world, in
Yeah.
on Bondi Beach in Sydney, and we sat
There's
there
worse
on the beach.
places to meet.
Oh, I know. It was our first business meeting, and we sat and we had scraps of paper and all bits and pieces, and we wanted to do vodka Rebel in a can. We had this great idea, which was basically Pimlico plumbers. I'd love to say I invented that, but not true. Or Jake did. Anyway, and we had all these scraps of paper, all these ideas. But Jake had a suit made. I think it was Thailand, and it
Yeah.
was a tux, and it was rubbish. But we thought, well, what if you could actually get that tailoring right? And what if we combined that with my previous experience, which is in high-end customer service? I've been managing a top-end furniture shop. So that's what we did. I then went to Vietnam and I interviewed, 30 or 40 tailors, which was
Wow.
hilarious. I went round the day before and gave them a piece of paper with a list of questions that I was going to ask. And I would come back the next day and say, did you get my piece of paper? Can we talk about it? And they'd have the piece of paper would be upside down like half the time. But it was great fun. And I met this woman called Moon, and we struck up a great rapport, and she just kind of got it. It's still quite a relatively communist country, or it was back then. And for them, it was just about just knock out a suit. Yeah, I think lots of people have had a suit made in Vietnam or Thailand, and they just knock it out, and they don't care about the customer service or anything, about whether anyone's going to bring it back.
Because people are on their travels, because nobody's going to bring it back, are they?
No. So we had to train them to really, put time and attention in, and it was a sort of crash course in capitalism for both of us, because we were saying, look, we will pay you more than the tourists pay for these suits, but we want you to pay the highest salaries in town. We want you to attract the best customers and the best staff.
Yeah.
And it worked. It was brilliant. And we watched this tiny little shop become, they built a building. They had all the cloths on the top floor. She lived on the middle floor. The ground floor was where they worked. They had a swimming pool for the staff. I mean, this is in Vietnam. It was extraordinary. Wow. The head tailor drove a Harley. I swear they made more money out of it than we did.
And perhaps you'll never know.
No, but it was a fabulous relationship, and we expanded the range. I mean, at first we just sold black tie, and it was called just black tie. We invested 500 quid each, and we bought a laptop and a black cab, an old. Yeah, I was going to swear. A dirty old black cab that we rebranded as the Tuxie.
Yeah. I see what you're doing there.
Yeah, thanks. An entire business based on a really good pun. We drove around the country selling tuxedos to public school boys and girls and students, and basically getting people ready for the prom. And that was what we did. So we did that for a year.
That was your niche, and that was your niche. That was your focus, and off you went.
Yeah, it was the Henry Ford model. We just had one color, and it was black.
Yeah, but so at what point did you go, right, this is working? We're in our taxi, we're driving around, we're selling to students, we're selling to private schools. We're getting the quality of products over. We should now become a bespoke tailors. I mean, that's quite a big leap, Adam, isn't it?
Yes, it was. But by that point, and it was about a year, by that point, we actually then understood the architecture of a suit, which we didn't have a clue about before. Jake had never even worn one. So we then knew that all we had to do was introduce new ranges of cloths, and we could expand into the city, which is exactly what we did. And we started hiring venues, the sort of upstairs of a pub. That was our prime position. And we would turn them into a tailor shop for the day. I have a sort of history in theatre, kind of, aspirational. And it was very theatrical. We would go in, we change the light bulbs, change the music, uh, um, bring in props, and I hired out of work actors to do the selling of the suits. So they were trained
Wow.
how to measure and how to sell suits, and it was brilliant. They were amazing. They were
So
able to
this,
completely adapt their personality to suit the person that they were with.
well,
It was
I
brilliant.
suppose that's what they're trained to do, isn't it? They're
Yeah.
put on a show. But so that's a very early version of the kind of pop-up shop and pop-up business that we see quite frequently today then.
Yes. Yes. It was, but it was only for 24 hours. We would only
Okay.
be there for that day, and then we would come back to the same venue 2 weeks later or a month later, and
Yeah.
we would tour that around the world, around the country. And we had at one point we had 30 of these
Okay.
pop-ups. So when you went onto the website, there was you could go to your local town and get measured for a suit.
But at some point you then did open physical shops and stores.
Yes,
And again, that's quite a big leap. You've gone from a low overhead business to a business that then is sucking cash daily in rent and staffing and all of those costs.
but we had the data to prove that it was going to work because
Okay.
we only opened up the shops in the places where we got the most customers already.
So you had your hotspots, then you
Yeah,
just focused on them.
yeah. So,
Wow.
needless to say, the City of London was the hottest of the hotspots, and we still have a shop in Liverpool Street.
So yeah, I mean, business started back in 2003, 2004, obviously 2021 now. What where is that business now and what's your role in it now, Adam?
I'm a non-exec director,
Yeah,
so I go for dinner with Jake and a couple of members of the board uh, once every quarter, and Jake and I will chat on the phone about what's going on, but it's very ad hoc. He is very much king of the castle, and
yeah,
I'm a sounding board as and when he needs it. We worked brilliantly as a team. I mean, there were times, of course, where we
yeah.
really fought like cats and dogs, but actually we complemented each other very well. He is a systems guy. He's just process, 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 and his mark on the tailoring world is that I would argue is that he's turned something that was traditionally very artistic into a science.
Yeah.
The accuracy of the suit is unbelievable to the point that now when people come and get fitted, it's just little tweaks here and there, and that doesn't even happen on Savile Row. So what that does to your margins is extraordinary because you're having
Yeah.
fewer appointments and you're paying your tailors less to do alterations and improvements. So yeah, it's a beautiful product. I'm really proud of it, and I'm really proud of what he brought to it. I was just the mouth.
Right.
I was sales, marketing,
Yeah.
recruiting, and I would go on tour with the actors, and we would do these pop ups together. And then towards the end, I was still doing one day a week in the city because I felt it was so important for me to be there at the coalface.
Actually, it's quite interesting talking to you now, but I can see how you would have been some of that energy, that sales, that marketing to get the drive to get that business underway. But was there a point therefore where you realized you were not so needed in that
Correct.
business
That's
anymore?
exactly what happened.
And how did that feel? And how did that come about?
It was around 2012, I think, and I was just feeling like the sales and marketing guy.
Yeah,
We got into our groove, and I think, if he was here now, I would, Jake is less risk averse, more risk averse than I am,
yeah,
and I think had I been king of the castle, I'd have probably got Justin Timberlake in to do the adverts and driven into the ground.
yeah,
It would have it would have imploded, and I owe so much to him because I learned so much about the importance of process. But I felt it was time. I think we both realised that we'd gleaned enough from each other
yeah,
through osmosis that we could do it on our own.
yeah.
And indeed, he has taken over, everything, and so sales, marketing, etc. And I am now running a business where I have to design and execute all the processes.
There you are. You learn from each other, and
Yeah,
a friendship. And I suppose that's a great way. I mean, that's a great strength. And not many business partners, owners, founders realize that, do they? There sometimes does come a point in a journey where you got to recognize you've done your thing, and actually time needs to step back, let others play to their strengths, and
Yeah,
actually take
absolutely.
some of the spoils and rewards as effectively as an investor rather than being at the coalface. That takes a lot of bravery, I would say, Adam.
Yeah, it's interesting you use that word. I would call it self-confidence.
Okay.
I feel like I have been, like I was given this when I was born. I've been self-confident since I was born. I,
Right.
I, what I feel like the attribute the most grateful for is that I can walk into a room and I never feel any social anxiety. I just I can just go up and chat to anybody,
Yeah.
and I'm confident and happy. And interestingly, I would say that is also my greatest fault,
Okay.
because the next part of the story is that I went off to do it on my own and I failed disastrously.
Okay. So
So
that's
I
that
set
that
up,
that feeling
yeah,
that you probably could walk on water, you could do it, you were the man.
yeah,
And
I
so
was
what
going to
happened
prove
then,
to
Adam?
Jake that I could
Yeah.
do it. No.
So what was the business you went and set up then?
So it was called Traffic Light, and essentially it was an internal social network for companies.
Okay.
I regretfully, it's very similar to Slack,
Okay.
which really stings.
The
But
idea was right.
the idea was right. Yeah, quite. Let's blame the execution. I mean, why
Yeah.
not?
So what went wrong? When you look back at that, we all look back with, hindsight or only ever kicks us in the teeth, doesn't it? But when you look back with hindsight, that element of your journey post the King and Allen and setting up Traffic Light, what lessons did you learn?
So I learned about interpreting data, I think. I learned a lot about B2B sales. I had been
Yeah.
B2C my entire career.
Okay.
So to go business to business overnight, I then had it was an entirely different sales process.
Yeah.
And I've always said, and I still say it, that I'm a salesman disguised as a CEO. I'm that is the fundamental of who I am and what I do. Whether it's selling to clients or to the business to investors, or selling the company
Yeah.
values to someone I'm recruiting. It's just that's the nature
Sales
of
job. Yeah.
exactly. And I learned a lot about B2B, but what I learned the most is knowing when to stop. I set myself a challenge of I'm going to get meetings with XYZ, and wrote out a list. I met with most of them, and when they weren't interested, I knocked it on the head. Then
Right.
pivoted into another industry and did it again and knocked that on the head, and pivoted into a third industry, did it again, knocked that on the head. But I did it fairly, I failed and failed fast.
Yeah. I suppose, and then if you are going to fail, then you failing fast and realizing that it's not going to work as an attribute to have, isn't it? Otherwise, you just are banging your head against the brick wall. And there is this kind of adage as well, isn't there? When you start a business, then don't make it perfect, don't launch perfect, launch with minimum viable, and go and see what
Absolutely.
happens.
And there's this constant clash, I think, of advice where people say, never give up.
Yeah,
Just keep on keeping on. Tomorrow's a new day. And then you've got the other adage, which is fail fast. And it's like,
yeah,
well, which is it? And that I think the answer is data. Is you actually set yourself milestones, and when you haven't reached those milestones, then you know the answer.
yeah. I think that, but you've got to make sure you've given it the fair crack, haven't you? And you've set, like you say, I think it's probably is about data, isn't it? It's setting objectives and knowing you've given your all to fulfill that objective. And
Yeah,
when the
God, listen
data
to me. Listen to
says,
how process driven I am.
yeah, Jake is going to be very proud if he listens to this podcast. So I suppose confidence knocked, or maybe because you've got that self belief and that self confidence, confidence not knocked. Is that when you came across SwipeStation?
Yeah, so I reached out to my network, and I said, I'm looking for something else. I'm looking for something different. And fortunately, a guy called Sid Nadeem, who I've been friends with through my network for some time, I happened to be having lunch with him the next day.
Okay.
and he had this startup that he was looking for a CEO for. I mean, it was just perfect.
Okay. And that was it. That was SwipeStation.
That was SwipeStation. So they had done one pilot at Saracens,
Okay.
and it was an unmitigated disaster. But still, I came in and I was like, I think I know how I can fix this, and I believe I know where you went wrong, and I think it's a great idea, and I'd love to run with it.
Wow. And so perhaps for our listeners, just briefly say what SwipeStation does.
So SwipeStation is a mobile ordering service aimed at mass gatherings, so stadiums, exhibitions, festivals, etc.
Okay.
So on the one hand, we have tills and touchscreens, McDonald's and those kind of things. On the other, we have mobile payment, which is your Wetherspoons app and Starbucks,
Yeah.
etc. Where we sit is in this niche in between, where mobile payment doesn't work in stadiums because phones just
Nobody's
die.
got a phone signal. No,
Nobody's
everybody's
got a phone
trying to everyone's trying to use their phone. Yeah.
Yeah, and tills and McDonald's style ordering systems are slow, too slow. So they've got a very narrow window of half an hour before kickoff and half time and maybe afterwards to do all of their business. In rugby's case, 15 times a year.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've taken away the deliberation, the ordering, and the payment from the service area, so that by the time you get to the service area, you're holding a piece of paper, you're holding a receipt that you just hand to the server. And of course, it's so easy for them. They don't need any training. They don't need to understand a till or even be able to speak English that well or hear what the person's trying to order. They just have to read off the bit of paper, go and fetch your drinks, and deliver and hand them over. So we pretty much guarantee a 15-second serve. You can serve 3 people a minute.
Wow. That must compare to 1 in a minute.
1 a minute or maybe 2
in a traditional queue at half time when you're desperate to get that drink or that bit of food and you can't.
Yeah. And that's the thing, we've all been there. We've all stood there in a queue. And that's how this idea started, was standing in a queue at Twickenham. And but you watch the server and you're pulling your hair out thinking, oh my God, this is just painful. But the truth is, those tills are really hard to use. They're not designed to be used by casual staff, and they're certainly not designed to be used 15 times a year.
No.
They're supposed to be in a pub or a restaurant used every day. So actually, knowing what I know, I feel sorry for casual staff. They're doing the best they can, trying to work out a computer, essentially. So we took out all of that.
So again, I suppose a bit like you were doing with King and Allen in the early days and the attempt with Trafford, like you're trying to break in with something that's not been done before. Is that fair to say, Adam? Because you're sitting somewhere between that kind of traditional till and the app and that technology piece. So is one of your biggest challenges getting people to actually adopt the technology?
Yes, very much so. Someone once said to me in a meeting, I don't mind being cutting edge, I just don't want to be bleeding edge, which I thought was quite funny, but also infuriating in equal measure. And I get it. It is an entirely new form of payment, albeit very niche. But the way the app works, for example, is it looks and feels exactly like normal mobile payment. It looks and feels like Starbucks or whatever. But actually, the app never speaks to the internet.
Right.
It works in airplane mode. So actually, you can. It's a really sexy way of ordering food and drink, but actually, it's just a QR code making app.
So it produces the QR code. I assume you go up to a state, assume a SwipeStation, you swipe in, it gives you a bit of paper and you take that to the till.
Exactly right.
Simple.
So the SwipeStation itself it looks like a backpack. It's really beautiful piece of kit. And it's got lights and lots of, marketing messages around it to help you along. But essentially, it's an unmanned till. So when you scan your phone at the SwipeStation, it speaks to the bank. Yes, have they got the money? And it spits out a ticket in 3 seconds.
Right.
So it's great for the clients because essentially the fans are doing a lot of the work. They're deliberating in their seats and, oh, Dave, what do you want? Do you want a half or a pint? Blah, blah, blah. All of that chat is done in the seat. The order is done on the phone and the payment is done at the SwipeStation.
Right.
But as far as the fan is concerned, they're queuing, they're waiting once they get in that queue. And of course, we don't have queues. So it's fabulous. And they all chat in the queue going, "Oh, this is amazing, isn't it?" They're all, I'm not going to use the word smug, but they kind of they know they're doing something clever and beating the system.
But you are trying to break into something that hasn't been done before, I suppose. And
yes.
I assume the stadiums, need to invest in your kit, and they've probably already got till systems, and it's that adoption of new technology challenge. And how are you overcoming that?
So we are able to integrate with till systems if we need to, or we run as an add-on. Okay. And the way we're doing it really is, again, going back to data. We've got really good case studies. We're proven to uplift sales by 25%, which is massive. Again, going back to football has 23 home games a year and rugby has 15. So, if you can add a tiny amount to the margin, it makes a huge difference.
It's all about, for those industries, isn't it, revenue on game day,
Exactly
like
right.
you say, unused facility, they've got to capitalize and maximize their revenue income that they can produce on match day, haven't they? And if your technology does that, then
and it's by taking the skill out of the sales process, so turning casual labor into service ninjas.
Service ninjas,
lightning quick. It's great.
I like that. Turn them into service ninjas.
Maybe that should be our new tagline.
Yeah, there you are. You've come up with a new tagline.
Yeah.
Sales and marketing
half-time
strikes
drinks
again.
in half the time. It's quite a good tagline, though.
Yeah, it is quite good. Does that mean you can drink twice as many?
Well, it certainly means that you can have a pint and a pee, which is a lot of people's main objective for half-time.
Agreed.
People write to us and thank us.
Pint and pee. Not pint and pint. Not pint and pie, pint and pee. There we are.
Yeah.
So, obviously, we talked about some of your challenges with that business. What are some of your hopes and aspirations for that business, Adam?
So, the pandemic has been a very interesting time for us.
I can imagine.
The Corona coaster, as our chairman puts it. On the one hand, the world has definitely moved in our direction. Pitching a mobile ordering service to stadiums pre-pandemic was hard because the fans themselves are steeped in tradition. They'll use the same turnstile, they'll queue at the same till, they'll pee at the same urinal their dad did. Mm-hmm. And we're asking them to change a huge amount of behavior. But what the pandemic did was actually advanced our cause by a number of years and a number of months. Because since then, people have used their phones to order from a supermarket, for a takeaway, and they've even used it in a pub to order food and drink.
Yeah, so the world reset, didn't it, in terms of how we use our phones, and how we use technology, and how we pay for things. Yeah.
So what my aspirations are to see the world's first mobile payment only stadium. I think that would be incredibly exciting. And then to expand the business internationally.
Okay. So it's UK focused now.
It is UK focused now. And I mean, that is partly to do with having hardware.
Yeah.
I advice to anyone out there who is an inventor. I completely underestimated how hard it is working on an invention and having to iterate and all of the boring old health and safety stuff and the patent stuff. It is exhausting. We got the SwipeStation to, it was Mark II, Mark III, and it was just beautiful and it worked perfectly and everything else. And then we got it in the field and it had this lovely bulbous head and with a flat top. And people started putting their pints on the top. And I was like, oh God. So we had to go back and redesign the whole thing. And then you have to go through all those hoops again.
Yeah.
It's so infuriating.
And how is it working with you? You've said during the course of this conversation that you're very sales focused, a sales focused CEO, and you've come into a business to support a startup stage, a what I'd imagine is an sort of an inventor, a tech based individual who's got a concept and idea. So your inclination, I would imagine, is to go out sell, and the founder, the individual that invented SwipeStation's inclination is to perfect the product. Does that cause conflict?
Um, I strongly urge you to get Sid Nadeem onto this podcast. He is the
Okay.
most charismatic person I've ever met, and this is the only thing he's invented. He actually
Right.
runs a large digital agency and 3 other businesses.
Oh wow, he needs to come on the podcast.
He is fantastic, and
So I've painted the wrong image of him completely.
absolutely. But he still has inventor on his business card because he's an idiot.
Okay. Quirky, unusual. Yeah.
But no, he is just this. He's a rugby fan, and
Okay.
it all came about from him being frustrated at queuing for a beer at rugby matches, and he thought, what if the fan handed over a piece of paper with their order written on it, and then he worked backwards from there. It's very clever.
Yeah. It is.
But no, he's extremely, he's very sales focused.
Charismatic,
Very,
outgoing.
So he and I in a meeting, we have a thing where we kick each other under the table if we're talking too much.
Okay.
There's our conflict.
Yeah, that's your conflict. Right. Shut up, you. Shut up, you. Off we go. Getting too enthused. And I suppose, that then leads to another question. How do two people that are very entrepreneurial, outgoing, sales focused, passionate about it, make sure you are developing product in the right way? I mean, who does that within the business?
Oftentimes it's dictated by the client.
Okay.
They come to us with needs.
Yeah.
And when a pattern starts to emerge, then you know that it's something that needs building.
There's a problem you need to solve. So it's
Absolutely.
not that inventor mentality of just invent. It's where's my piece? What's the product going to do that's the piece of paracetamol that solves the client's problem?
Absolutely right.
Yeah,
So we've
that's a
just
great way
started
to do it.
building, we've just started testing, sorry, it is built and completed, a back-end system called the SMART system. SMART stands for stock management and analytics in real time. So essentially what you will be able to do on a phone is manage your entire back-end stock system on a match day. And that's never been done before. So traditionally, our stakeholders are tied ball and chain to a PC, watching the numbers coming in, looking at stock supplies, working out where the pain points are going to be. We're putting all of that into a phone.
Right. So they'll be able to see it, walk the stadium, solve the problems.
Yes.
Wow.
And they'll be able to drop and drag products into other units, and then those units can then be physically moved over. So you're running out of crisps. It's just not a problem.
Sounds brilliant. Sounds a solution. I need to go and find a station with the SwipeStation. A stadium with the SwipeStation. So,
everybody does.
Yeah, clearly. So, obviously, you're enjoying that journey and where you are in life right now. I suppose one of the questions I'd ask is, that having founded a couple of businesses, having been on a bit of a roller coaster ride, has running your own businesses and being involved as a founder had a significant effect on you from a personal perspective?
When Jake and I started King and Allen, we were living in a house with 9 other people that was due for demolition. And we ran the business from the bathroom, and we kept the suits in the old dining room, and we lived and breathed it, and our girlfriends lived there and our friends lived there, and it was intense, but
I can imagine.
but great fun. And as the years have gone on, I feel like I've actually managed my work-life balance very well.
Okay.
I'm a big investor in networking. I really believe in it. I don't think it's a dirty word. I think it's essentially what you're doing is building up a group of friends who are there to help.
And as your story proves, Adam.
Yeah, it's been invaluable over the years, and I take great pride in going out and meeting people, and if it uses up my evenings, so be it. But
Is that because you've blended your work and your personal life that you think you've got, or you have got a balance? It's because you're not trying to separate the two.
That's a good point. Arguably, yes, when I'm out and I'm going to a dinner or something, it is work. I don't see it as work.
It doesn't feel
but
like
what you
work.
won't find me doing is working at weekends on spreadsheets.
Okay.
I'm really good at keeping that balance.
Yeah.
And I'm very honest and open with the other business owners that I'm friends with. And I ask them, how's their work-life balance? How are they? One of your brilliant podcasts that was called "How Are You?"
And how are you really? Yeah.
How are you really? Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
And I try and keep up with people and see how everyone's doing, and so you're able to sort of gauge: am I okay? Am I doing all right? Am I happy? Is this making me happy?
Yeah.
Am I working too hard, or am I not working too hard?
Yeah. I think that's brilliant, isn't it? And I think that's what I'm one of my sort of passions is when it's what evolves about is you put like-minded people together and you just let them converse. Great things can happen, but the support that people give each other, if they're open and honest with each other, is immense. And people learn from each other's experiences. And sometimes you go, yeah, well, I know I've had that, and this is how I solved it. And all of a sudden, somebody that's worried or stressed or uptight about something because it's the first time they've encountered this challenge in their business journey finds a solution. And at other times, it's just fun to converse with like-minded people and have a laugh and have a
good friend of
joke.
mine, Ollie Barrett, has what he calls a kitchen cabinet, and it's a cabinet of people who he meets, guess where, in his kitchen, and he just bounces ideas off them, and it's brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm a member of the Supper Club. I don't know if you've heard of that, and it's
a
really good networking club for like-minded entrepreneurs who. Yeah, everyone is really honest with each other and really are there to help each other. It's where I met Sid.
Ah, okay, it's interesting, isn't it? So,
So when I said I reached out to my network,
so that's it's the principle behind. Yeah, it's the principle behind Evolve as well. So if you look at where you are right now, some of the challenges you're facing, obviously the pandemic and the SwipeStation, the effect, but there's some of those exciting opportunities. What hard thing are you not doing enough of, Adam? What's the one thing that you're not doing that you should be doing right now, do you think?
I think the thing I'm putting off is international expansion.
Okay.
And that is probably fear. I think, whenever I sit down to go, I'm going to focus on international expansion, I always find something else more pressing to get to do. And I think it's that fear of, am I ready? Is the business ready?
Yeah.
Do I want to be jetting around the world, looking after the teams? And I've just had a baby. Does that fit in with my life goals? And you when I have my work hat on, I'm like, well, it shouldn't matter. I do what's best for the business. But we don't always wear our work hat. We have our home hat, and it's about finding that balance. I think as well it comes from the confidence in the business and in the technology and all of that, and knowing, okay, when is it truly scalable? When can I just train other teams to manage this and set it free? And perhaps it's part of that, watching your kids grow up and move out. Perhaps it's that fear as well.
It's that kind of face. This is my baby. This is something I've been working on this. Yeah, but I suppose the UK has got so many stadiums to shoot at, hasn't it? That there is opportunity on your doorstep as well.
I've got enough to keep me busy, that's for sure.
And anything that keeps you up at night, other than the new baby?
My dad gave me a really good piece of advice years ago, which was always make sure you can sleep at night. And I think at the time what he meant was pay your taxes, obey the laws, etc., etc. But I've actually moved that into my whole life, where it's more around don't hurt people's feelings. Make sure that someone who leaves your company feels better than when they entered your company, and that you're not lying awake at night. Oh, I offended that person today, or I could have said something better. Or I could have said the right thing.
Yeah.
And so I sleep very well.
Great. And that's a great value to live your life by, isn't it?
I think so.
Great piece of advice by your dad.
Yeah.
You might have interpreted it slightly different, but it's a great piece of advice. You put more meaning behind it, definitely. So as we kind of wrap up our conversation, I always end with the same question. Typically, which is, what does success mean to you, Adam?
I knew you were going to ask me this question because I've seen it and heard it on a podcast.
I'm going to have to change this last question if every guest knows that it's coming now.
I wake up in the morning almost every day and look forward to the day. There's something in that day that is exciting to me, or it's going to be fun or interesting or challenging. And that's not to say I don't have, I'm not reticent, or I'm not. Yeah, I do. It's not all rainbows and unicorns, but I take great pride in that I built a life for myself where every day is, I bounce out of bed. I'm sure that's a really annoying answer for people who hate bouncing out of bed, but and interestingly, I have just had a baby, and I don't bounce out of bed. I actually do the morning session, so I will look after the baby between like 7 and 8:30, while my partner catches up on sleep. And so for the first time, well, firstly, I'm awake during that time, so that's the first. But also we have this together. I mean, she's half asleep, so we have this hour and a half of serenity and calm before the day starts.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that's sort of my happy place and my time to reflect. And so I suppose at the moment I'm feeling that, as well as being proud of the business and where I am, I'm actually really enjoying being a dad, way more than I thought I would, to be honest.
It's one of the biggest privileges you can have in life. I think I've got 2 daughters, and my life is just so much better and more worth just to spend time with them, and see them grow up into young women, and just see what they can achieve in life, and that they can be happy. And I think you're going to have a great experience, Adam. I am sure.
I'm really looking forward to it. It's been great fun so far.
Definitely. And of course, the thing you're looking forward to today was being on the Evolve to Succeed podcast, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's great fun. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
So, Adam, if people want to know more about you and more about SwipeStation, where can they go?
SwipeStation.co.uk. All the information's on the website, or they can contact me directly, adam@swipestation.co.uk.
Brilliant, Adam. You've been a great guest on the Evolve to Succeed podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to the Evolve to Succeed podcast. My hope with every episode is that you've learned something new or heard something that challenged your way of thinking and further motivated you on your path towards becoming a more knowledgeable, informed, and inspired individual and business leader. If you enjoyed this episode, then please help us by rating, reviewing, and subscribing. We really value your feedback and would love to have you along for future episodes. And please don't forget to learn more about Evolve by going to evolvemembers.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.